For over 150 years, the theory of evolution through natural selection has sparked numerous controversies about where we come from, how we were made, and the role of science and religion in the conflict. The battle has pitted evolutionists against creationists, science against religion. The debate over what should be taught in America's biology classrooms has raged for over 80 years, from the famous Scopes trials in 1925 to the present-day Kitzmiller trial.
People talk about the debate of creation and evolution. That's not a religious debate. There's nothing religious about it at all. It's a political debate.
The many battles over evolution can be attributed to the life works of Charles Darwin. Darwin, an English naturalist, first began observing evolutionary processes from 1831 to 1836, the time in which he traveled the world on the HMS Beagle. While on the Galapagos Islands for the better part of 1835, he noticed slight variations among the island chain's finches, most notably their differing beak sizes. Darwin hypothesized that the 13 species of finches he observed had all descended from a single common ancestor, the common ground finch. He also believed that these finches had adapted, or evolved over time, to prosper in their unique environments. Although well supported, Darwin remained hesitant to publish his works for nearly 25 years due to concerns over the radical nature of his studies. Only when Alfred Russel Wallace, a well-respected British naturalist, discussed his findings on possible natural selection methods in 1858 did Darwin finally introduce his theory on evolution through natural selection to the scientific community. This theory was explained in Darwin's magnum opus, On the Origin of Species, when it was finally published in 1859.
Evolution happens. I mean, natural selection is an absolutely valid explanation for how adaptations arise.
In 1925, evolution faced its first major battle in the courts over whether it could be taught in public schools. John Scopes, a high school biology teacher, was on trial for teaching evolution in his class, thus violating the Butler Act of 1925. The Butler Act stated that it was unlawful to teach any theory that denies the story of divine creation of man, as taught in the Bible. The Tennessee court case drew national publicity, and two highly successful lawyers joined in the fight. William Jennings Bryan, an elder statesman and three-time Democratic presidential candidate, served to prosecute Scopes. His ideology embraced an unusual mix of liberalism and radical conservatism. He held a progressive position on both social and economic issues, yet he staunchly opposed Darwinian theory. Bryan, a fundamentalist Protestant, objected to the theory of evolution not solely for religious reasons, but for social ones as well. In his famous early 1920s pamphlet, The Menace of Darwinism, Bryan described how the idea of survival of the fittest led to oppressive militaristic societies, such as the one seen in Germany during World War I. In his prosecution, Bryan argued that atheism and evolution would destroy America. Clarence Darrow, a renowned criminal defense lawyer and leading member of the American Civil Liberties Union, represented Scopes pro bono on behalf of the acclaimed organization. Darrow intended to take the case to the Supreme Court, where he would be able to challenge the constitutionality of the Butler Act. His attempt failed, and Darrow was forced to try the case in the local court. He insisted that the controversy arose from conflict between a literal translation of the Bible as opposed to an allegorical or metaphorical one. This dissension, Darrow claimed, hindered educational progress in America. The trial lasted 8 days, and the jury took only 9 minutes to reach a verdict. Scopes was found guilty and fined $100. The victory for creationism resulted in a hiatus of evolutionary theory and prompted America's schools to purchase biology books containing little or no reference to evolutionary theory in an effort to avoid controversy. One study, conducted by the Biological Science Curriculum Study, found that by 1930, 5 years after the trial, 7 out of 10 high school biology textbooks omitted any mention of evolution. This trend would continue for over 3 decades.
What the textbook manufacturers want is to produce a product which satisfies as many people as possible so they can sell a lot of them. And so the manufacturers have got an incentive to avoid controversy.
It wasn't until the mid to late 50s, at the beginning of the Cold War, that the conflict was rebirthed. America's growing need for scientists and engineers to compete against the Soviet Union in the space and armaments race prompted government officials to put more emphasis on mathematical and scientific studies. In less than 2 decades, over 50% of biology textbooks were biological science curriculum study books, which included evolution as a major theme. Many others were modeled after them. Though evolution had rebounded from the Scopes trial ruling of 1925, Creation proponents immediately met the challenge posed by evolutionists by engaging in numerous court cases from 1968 to 1987. However, creationism did not fare as well in the courts as it did in 1925. New scientific evidence supporting the theory of evolution gave Darwinian theory the upper hand over creationism's faith-based principles. Beginning with the 1968 Supreme Court case Epperson v. Arkansas, creationism's position in American classrooms steadily began to recede. In the case, the Supreme Court invalidated a 40-year-old Arkansas statute prohibiting the instruction of evolution in public schools. The decision gave rise to numerous court battles throughout the 1970s and 80s. The Tennessee trial Daniel v. Waters in 1975 and the Arkansas litigation McLean v. Arkansas of 1982 both resulted in the prohibition of mandates requiring equal instruction time for creationism and evolution, on the grounds that they violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment.
The position of the creationists has become more and more difficult as they've been forced into a corner by the logic of one court decision after the next.
The epic 1987 Supreme Court case, Edwards v. Aguillard, provided an absolute decision on the creationism-evolution debate. The Louisiana trial fielded a dispute over a state law entitled the Balanced Treatment for Creation Science and Evolution Science in Public School Instruction Act. The statute prohibited the instruction of evolutionary theory in public schools unless the lesson was accompanied by the instruction of creationism. The Supreme Court eventually heard the case and subjected the constitutionality of the law to the famous Lemon Test. The Lemon Test consisted of 3 parts, which detailed the requirements for legislation concerning religion. They stated that the government's actions 1. Must have a secular legislative purpose, 2. Must not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion, and 3. Must not result in an excessive government entanglement with religion. Having modeled its decision on these 3 elements, the court handed down a 7-2 ruling that declared any instruction of creationism in public schools to be unconstitutional. This decision essentially stopped the teaching of creationism overnight. Though creationism was successfully banned from America's public biology classrooms, a new theory originated from the Edwards v. Aguillard ruling, called intelligent design. This new theory put forth the idea that the world was too complex to have arisen by mere chance, and that an intelligent designer must have created it. Dr. William Dembski, a leading proponent of intelligent design, describes it as a bridge between science and theology. Intelligent design has since rivaled evolution for precedence in the public school system. The first conflict between evolution and intelligent design in the federal courts was the 2005 Kitzmiller v. Dover Area School District trial. The problem began when the school district ordered the famed anti-evolutionary textbook of Pan is in People. While not required in the biology curriculum, the book was to be an available resource to students after teachers read a short statement explaining the holes in evolution and the existence of other scientific theories, such as intelligent design. The book, which was published less than 2 years after the Edwards v. Aguillard ruling, promotes what many believe to be creationism in disguise. The book's theme of intelligent design essentially replaces the terms creator and created with designer and designed. Many were outraged by the new requirements. In protest of the additions to the school's curriculum, 3 school board members resigned from office, and 11 parents of students, represented by the ACLU, brought suit against the school district. The case was brought before the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, presided over by Judge John Jones. The 3-week-long trial saw many expert witnesses, such as evolutionary biologist Kenneth Miller, as well as Michael Behe, a strong proponent of intelligent design. Judge Jones ruled in a 139-page findings of fact and decision that the evidence showed intelligent design to be, quote, nothing less than the progeny of creationism. He found that the instruction of intelligent design in public classrooms violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, just as creationism had in 1987. Few other conflicts have been so monumental and influential to society as the evolution battle. Man has long argued the origins of life, and over 4 generations have conflicted with the theory in American courts. Science and religion have heatedly sparred over the issue, but there are hopes that the two can one day compromise and exist harmoniously together. Though this day may be far off, hope still remains, but until that day, the issue will undoubtedly continue to be a highly debated conflict.